Vladimir Klitschko, Bryant Jennings, let me correct that, the Steel Hammer Klitschko against Bye Jennings is going down. First and foremost, I want to break some things that will help you guys view this fight and really give yourself a pre-fight prediction based on the information that I'm about to give you. But first of all, I'd like to introduce myself for those who have never watched my show. My name is Eric Bradley, aka The Fight Doctor, and I thank you guys for watching. And right now you're watching Master Boxing, and this is where we break the fight world down round by round. So first and foremost, I want to educate you guys on the simple fact that there are certain types of fighters on the planet. There are natural born fighters that get bred into solid professionals and they have a illustrious career. And then there are guys who are decorated, meaning those guys who were bred from the amateur ranks at a very young age, taken to the Olympic status, like the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Oscar De La Hoyas. Gold medal Olympians are very celebrated in the American culture, at least back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Once the scoring system changed in the Olympics, things started to sway. So you started having less decorated amateurs. And the last gold medal Olympian we had in the Olympics was Andre Ward, and he's the number 2 pound for pound, at least in my book. Right now, he hasn't lost a fight and has really never had a close fight. He's a brutal, rugged, skilled purist in the ring. He knows how to use the ring in a great way, and he understands distance and range, and he understands how to close the gap, and he has a high volume of skills and craft, things it takes a lot of experience to learn. Well, the reason why I'm bringing these things up is because the type people that teach these kind of guys those type things are the teachers, which are late great coaches like Eddie Futch, Emmanuel Stewart. You know, these guys have an understanding of what it takes to be in that ring, because where they were from, and Bowie Fischer, not to mention the late great Bowie Fischer, these guys knew what it takes to come out of the belly of the beast and teach a fighter how to survive, and teaching them that craft, and that's why these things carry over. Well, Emmanuel Stewart is the teacher of, and I say teacher, not coach. There are guys who can come in, a guy can walk into the gym. Of course he has to have experience, and become a guy's coach. Just say Freddie Roach is Manny Pacquiao's coach. Manny Pacquiao doesn't need a lot of coaching. Manny Pacquiao still would have won titles. But he had to have that teaching element. And Freddie Roach taught Manny things that would keep him in the upper echelon and in the top conversations in his boxing career. Where am I going with this? I'm taking this to Vladimir Klitschko is 6'6" 3/4. I'm gonna be precise on that, because if you've seen him in person, the stature is absolutely phenomenal. He's an abominable specimen of a man with a skill set to match. A lot of people watch this guy, and even myself, and I don't give Vladimir Klitschko the credit of being at that weight class, dominating for the years that he have. I'm going to get into exactly why I stopped giving him, I really stopped being a fan of him, because I watched his earlier career and how he handled guys, and he didn't have that defensive mentality like Manuel Stewart taught him, because Manuel Stewart teaches tall fighters like Hearns and Klitschko and Lennox Lewis how to not be hit by smaller fighters, how to control range and beat your opponent up with a jab and a hook, and then add the right hand. And all those fighters had amazing right hands. As a matter of fact, those are the 3 best right hands in the sport of boxing and in the sport of boxing history, outside of Max Baer, who killed 2 people in the ring. Dominating right-handers, Manuel Stewart was a teacher and educator. And let me explain to you how he transcended Klitschko from a dominating heavyweight to a heavyweight that will go down in history for beating every individual that stood in front of him. You know why he did that? Because he wanted to make something special, something that he couldn't complete with Thomas Hearns. Even though Thomas Hearns had an illustrious career, he wanted more. He wanted to break through barriers and leave records untarnished, and records that won't be broken like Joe Louis did. And to be honest, Klitschko, love him or hate him, is on the way to that. Emmanuel Stewart taught Klitschko after being knocked out by Corey Sanders. Because prior to Corey Sanders, Klitschko was dogging cats. He was 6'6" 3/4. Let's say 6'7" because he has boxing shoes on, which is like more or less 1/4 of an inch. So he would come out on these guys and he would box and hook off the jab and engage in a more offensive style, which really gave those guys a lot of problems because the guy was already big, plus he was skilled. And when you got a big skill fighter in front of him, a big skill fighter beats a small skill fighter every single time. And the reason why is because they're tapping out at the same time. The bigger guy just has more. Now we're talking about even skill set. That's why he was dominating, guys. One of our fighters, or one of the fighters that came into our camp and needed help after he fought Klitschko, he was a gold medalist and a heavyweight champion. That's Ray Mercer. Ray Mercer personally told me specifically that that was the hardest he'd ever been hit. When you can drop a guy, and like I want to explain to you guys, Ray Mercer walks around right now about 266, 261, 6'1.5", which was the dominating heavyweight size back in the late 90s and the 80s. That was the size. You were big. Sonny Liston was 6'1", knocking guys' teeth out with jabs. This was the way Ray Mercer was as a man. I mean, he was a full-blooded, bred man. He was a thoroughbred Olympian, heavyweight champion. The way you have to get it back then was blue collar. You know, you didn't have a lot of interference coming in and just guiding you through, you know, the way you wanted to go. You had to earn your stripes. You had guys like Burt Cooper, Evander Holyfield. These guys you had to go through. They won't giving anything up. So when you look at the Burt Coopers of the world, you look at the Evander Holyfields of the world, you look at these guys, Michael Dokes of the world, Carl the Truth Williams. These were solid heavyweights. Not to mention the killers, the Mike Tysons. In that era, it was kill and be killed. And right now, the heavyweight division is leaning towards that way. Again, you got to get several more to get it back into that model. But sooner or later, it's going to happen because you got fighters on the come up strong like Deontay Wilder. And he seems to have the right cachet and the stature to compete at a very high level. That's yet to be seen. Now we go back to the Klitschko. Before Klitschko got knocked out by a guy who can hit like a mule kick. I wanted to make it clear that people say Klitschko lacks a chin. I'd like for you to stand in front of a bus with a helmet on and let the bus be going, let the bus come at you at 40 miles an hour. And that's about the impact that he got hit on the chin with by Corey Sanders. Let me remind you, Corey Sanders, rest his soul, was a wild child, a John Wayne of sorts. He was just say he was the Johnny Football of boxing, but he also had an education and had a very fly persona. He was a country clubber, played golf, but when he got in that boxing ring, he was a real fighter. I mean, southpaw stance, which gives anybody trouble. He got in the ring, he had gotten into Klitschko's head, so Klitschko threw all things out the window. And I think more than anything, he didn't have a good southpaw in camp, because he came right out. He got hit early, very soon in the first round, and got dropped like a couple of times. Second round, a couple of times he was out. But he got hit by, like I said, an 18-wheeler. That doesn't classify him as a weak chin. That classifies him as human, because anyone get hit on the button. If anyone gets hit on the button, repeat, if anyone gets hit on the button like that, you go out. That's physics. That's not a glass jaw. I've seen glass jaws. That's not a glass jaw. That's physics. So he became more defensive. A little bit more. He started to embrace more of the Emanuel Steward teaches. Then he got in the ring with Layman Brewster. And Layman Brewster did everything in the ring that night but die to beat Klitschko. And he didn't beat him because he didn't have a chin. He beat him because Klitschko punched every ounce of oxygen out of his body trying to knock Layman Brewster out cold, which the ref should have stopped it. Because the way he was hitting Layman Brewster, it was no way that guy should have survived that beating. And no ref should have allowed a beating like that to continue from a guy with that stature. He punching down on your face, body, head, uppercuts, hooks, knocking him down. He getting back up, refusing to not lose. He definitely won the Gotti Award that year, and Gotti was still alive fighting when that fight happened. So back to Brian Jennings going up against a guy this skilled. Now round 4, because I'm breaking this down in rounds like I do. Like I said before, we break the fight world down round by round. Share this with your friends because it's the day of the fight. So this post may not get seen by a lot of people, but if you want them to understand what's going on tonight, you share this post on Facebook, all through all your social media. Tweet it. Do yourself a favor. Let it get out, because I'm bringing nothing but that thorough stuff. But when Klitschko is taught by guys like Emanuel Steward, my uncle, Coach Anthony Bradley, Olympic coach 2004, from the old school, definitely the teachings that go along with that, you must understand that the guys coming up, it was a pamphlet, basically a book, a Bible that you would have to learn and understand when it came down to coaching, because these guys taught stuff. The PT training, this is a boxing training regimen that you go through, max PT. Military uses some of it, but boxers in the fight world, it's taken to another level. You know, you can see Klitschko doing the training styles, and if you watch Klitschko train seriously, not just watch him shadow box, but watch him prep to train, prep to work out, you know that that's something different. This guy understands how to get his body reactive, the quick twitch muscle reactive, the angles, the reflexes. He understands these things. You know why? Because he was taught how to use it. And this is an interesting section, because these are the things that get him prepped to be at a supreme level. And elite athletes are made in a certain particular manner, not because they're athletic, but because they've been taught how to take the body and allow the things that are necessary in his body physiologically, anatomically, to react. He doesn't just get in the ring and hope things start working. There's a preparation time period that he has to have before he starts to work out. And that's the max PT. And when that guy does that and gets in that ring, he's unstoppable. Let me tell you something. Brian Bye Jennings is a good fighter. He started at 24 years old, though. You understand the amount of stuff that is not seated in him. He's a good athlete. That's why he's picked it up. Sergio Martinez started late at 20 years old. That doesn't mean he won't be successful. It just means there are different levels of success. You know, Chris Arreola knocked out the football player. He knocked him out so hard in about the second round. You guys know what I'm talking about. This just happened like last year. And the thing about that is Klitschko said, I'm going to make you realize that being a fighter all your life is different than fighting someone who's just getting into the game. His name will come to me soon, and if you remember it, put it down in the comments, because right now that's really not a major point, so I'm not even going to get stuck on it. But at the same time, when you see Jennings, a version of a Holyfield, but not Holyfield, because I've seen Brian Jennings get knocked down by shots that Holyfield would not be knocked down by. But when you see a guy like Brian Jennings, you look at him as a good fighter. But the skill levels and the layers and layers of trivial skills coming from a guy 6'7" down on a guy 6'2.5" is detrimental, because he's going to take him into deep water, and it might be very early, because his last fight, which is Klitschko I'm speaking of, he came into that fight and he was offensive again, because he's not in a position where Emmanuel Stewart's in the corner. He's taking that stuff and he's said, I'm going to add these elements to my game again. And man, he looked dominating. And I became a fan once again of Klitschko, because I had nothing personal against him because where he's from and, you know, what his deal is. But the fact that he just became a heavyweight fighter the last time he came back out and proved that I'm going to give you guys reason to be fans of mine. That's a special situation. That's what legends are made of and built from. So I look at Brian Jennings, and he has an uphill climb. And I'm not saying he can't win the fight. I say it's more in Klitschko's hands that Brian Jennings will win the fight than anything. If Klitschko doesn't show up mentally or hadn't conditioned himself, those are the two ways he can beat him. But he can take a punch, because you don't go 11 years without a loss if you can't take a punch. You do not reign as heavyweight champion if you can't take a punch, because everybody you fight is over 235 pounds and trained and been in training camps for 8 weeks. This is important for you guys to listen to me. And that's why I ask you to continue to watch and understand that I'm breaking the fight world down. And when I do the demonstrations, it ain't with my mouth. I show you, because I'm a teacher as well. And that's why when you go to masterboxingllc.com, that menu is just illustrious, because we offer everything. And I want you guys who are out there watching to have that same boxing cachet that I do, because it's coming from a teacher and an educator. But I'm telling you, Klitschko is just so schooled. He's had triple the amount of years, or quadruple the amount of years that Brian Jennings has. So what Brian Jennings has learned, Klitschko has learned that 4 times over. And tonight, he's going to put it on display how much of a separation it is. And God forbid if he get in the ring with that guy Shannon Briggs, because Shannon Briggs is all over the place. But I love him. You got to love Shannon Briggs. He's bringing bravado back to the sport of boxing in the heavyweight division. Somebody give him a shot. He's out there screaming out Deontay Wilder. I don't know if that's what you want. I don't think you won't even get in the ring with Klitschko. But at the end of this all, he's trying and he's bringing energy to the heavyweight division. That's all you can ask for. But tonight, when you watch the fight, or tomorrow, when you're looking back at this post, if you click on this tomorrow, you'll understand what I was saying. And you'll say the guy kind of understands the sport of boxing. So, as I close, I'll close with this. Tonight, you're going to see a demonstration that a pugilist fighter, well-schooled fighter, taught and educated by some of the greatest, is going to display why he's different from the other guys. Brian Jennings is going to make some mistakes. He's going to look okay for a second, but during the press conferences this week, he was nervy and anxious. Those things will all show back up tonight when he walks in that circle. He sees that giant in front of him that's skilled and knows how to keep that range and keep that balance, but at the same time bring the offense. They call me the fight doctor. And I thank you guys for watching, because you're watching Master Boxing. And this is where we break the fight world down, round by round. Continue to watch. I'm about to break down the fight card from last night, PBC on NBC or PBC on Spike. Badou Jack performed amazing. He put a clinic on last night, and he really showed that he's ready to carry a 168 torch. He's a big boy and got some skill. He showed the ring cachet that someone at Mayweather's Boxing Club should show. And hats off to that guy. He definitely took Darrell into deep water and nearly drowned him. And then on the other hand, you got Daniel Jacobs, who performed in an amazing way with a 12th round stoppage. And needless to say, I don't have to say anything else, but that was enough. When you can stop a fighter in the 12th round in a title fight, you're the real deal. 68, 60, it's going to be some good fights this year in 2015. This is the year of boxing, taking over the mainstream. I thank you guys for watching. We out. Peace.